You know, have you ever actually felt like your own mind is this wildly complex landscape that you just don't fully understand? Like maybe there are these deep, hidden canyons or ancient fault lines inside you just waiting to be mapped out? Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving into a seriously fascinating piece of writing called The Glass-Proof and Persons Unaccounted For. And what makes this text so absolutely captivating is how it uses the hard sciences, geology, quantum physics, determinism, as these massive, brilliant metaphors to unpack the human soul. We're going to see exactly how scientific surveys can actually become the perfect tools for understanding trauma, grief, and that feeling of just being totally stuck in life. Right off the bat, I really want to hook you with this incredibly profound realization from one of the central figures in the text. Following a major medical event, she realizes something wild. Unlike a literal canyon that just sits there passively letting us measure it, human consciousness is uniquely capable of analyzing its own damage. We are the rock, yeah, but we are also the geologist surveying that rock. Just think about that for a second. That dual state, being the broken thing and the observer of the broken thing at the exact same time, is the absolute core of everything we're unpacking today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll explore the geology of the mind. Then we'll look at the superposition of grief. After that, we'll tackle the determinism problem. And finally, wrap it up with how the survey continues.
So, jumping right into part one, the geology of the mind, excavating the brain. Meet Marta. She's this seasoned geologist who has spent over a decade confidently surveying cliff edges and rock formations. But out of nowhere, a severe left hemisphere stroke completely scrambles her language processing. Suddenly, she's in a hospital bed, forced to turn that intense scientific gaze inward. She literally has to learn to speak all over again, treating her own rerouted brain like an archaeological dig. And her brain compensates in the most fascinating way. Marta keeps this little green notebook with 3 columns. When someone asks what she wants for lunch, she accidentally says canyon. When she wants to talk about her brain damage, she blurts out Devonian. But that 3rd column, it reveals the hidden connection. Both lunch and canyons involve a descent into layers, and both the Devonian era and her brain damage are periods defined by sudden, catastrophic endings. It's so brilliant because it shows how our mistakes often reveal our deepest internal realities. Her wrong words are actually bubbling up from these deeper poetic pathways, which she calls the deeply buried red band of her interior. Now, have you ever thought so hard about how you're walking that you actually trip over your own feet? That is proprioception in action, your body's ability to sense its own location and movements. As Marta relearns to walk, she is consciously hyper-monitoring every single step. Her speech therapist notices that this intense manual focus actually causes her to physically overcorrect. But here's the kicker. This physical overcorrection perfectly mirrors Marta's entire emotional life. For years, she's been over-surveying the outside world, just throwing herself into geology to avoid looking inward and facing the pain of a past relationship. And she's not just overcorrecting her steps, she's overcorrecting her emotions, especially when it comes to her colleague and former partner, Dave. See, Dave argues for contingency, this idea that canyons and life events, for that matter, are formed by totally random chance sequences. To him, loss is a real, terrifying random possibility. Marta, on the flip side, argues for necessity. Channeling the philosopher Spinoza, she believes that given prior conditions, whatever happened was the absolute only thing that could have happened. It's a total defense mechanism for her. Eventually, they realize they haven't actually been arguing about geology at all. They've just been using it to avoid talking about their very real fear of losing each other. Which brings us to Section 2, the superposition of grief, holding both states. Fast forward 6 months. Another woman, Seon, is standing at the exact same canyon Marta was surveying. But she isn't there to debate rock formations. She is there to grieve the sudden, tragic loss of her brother, June. To even begin to process this unimaginable loss, Seon leans on a concept from quantum physics, superposition. This is the idea that a system holds 2 conflicting states simultaneously until it's observed and the wave collapses. Seon applies this directly to her grieving mind. She is literally holding the reality that June is definitively gone, while at the very same time holding the reality that June is still entirely, vividly present. Now, what's really interesting here is how she visualizes this. Consider the difference between a closed door and an absent room. Seon's mother views grief like a closed door. It's a room you just can't enter anymore. The space is there, you just can't go in. But for Seon, it's an absent room. It's a complete architectural revision of reality where the room just ceases to exist. See, June was a sound engineer. He was always looking for the resonant frequency in absolutely everything. So without him, the universe hasn't just closed a door. The entire universe has lost its acoustics. The fundamental structure of her world is just different now.
And while she's standing there grieving at this canyon, Seo-yeon actually takes a measurement with a mass spectrometer that revises Marta's original dating of the rock by a staggering 12 million years. I mean, think about that for a second. In one single moment of new data, the entire accepted history of this massive geological structure completely changes. It highlights a crucial truth for both science and life. We have to constantly update our models of the world when better instruments or, new life experiences arrive. We're always revising our understanding of the world and the people in it.
Through this massive scientific revision, Seo-yeon comes to a really profound realization about her own heart. She realizes that staying in superposition isn't a failure to move on. Holding both realities at once, that he is gone and he is here, is actually the most accurate expression of deep grief in a conscious being. Finding peace doesn't always mean forcing the wave to collapse so you can move forward. Sometimes peace is just learning how to hold both truths at the exact same time.
Let's shift gears to Section 3, the determinism problem, the illusion of choice. So here, the author of the text, Zasi Garusk, shifts the narrative and introduces us to Lars. Lars is a translator who is going through a full-blown existential crisis over determinism. Determinism is basically the philosophy that all events are the inevitable result of prior causes, meaning there is zero true freedom of choice. Lars gets so bogged down in this, believing every single choice is pre-written, that his writing career becomes completely paralyzed. I mean, imagine believing so deeply that you have no free will, that when your wife asks why you left the milk out on the counter again, your only defense is, well, the universe made me do it. Yeah, naturally, his wife Sigrid leaves him.
So now Lars is sitting in this strange dive bar at 2 a.m., desperately trying to reconcile two vastly different philosophies to fix his completely broken life. On one hand, you have Spinoza saying, just accept the predetermined sequence of events to find peace. On the other, Camus says, accept the absurdity of the sequence, but proceed and act anyway. And honestly, it takes a 23-year-old bartender to just bluntly point out the obvious. He literally pauses from wiping down the counter and tells Lars, look, even if the universe is completely pre-written and completely absurd, you are still the one who has to live it. You're still obligated to act. Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds, because this late-night reality check sparks a complete philosophical evolution for Lars. He finally moves out of step 1, paralysis, where he was using determinism as a stopping point, just a cheap excuse to do nothing. He shifts into step 2, acceptance. He realizes that determinism isn't the end of the story. It's literally just the starting condition of life. And that breakthrough pushes him to step 3, proceed anyway. Lars finally goes home, puts the metaphorical and literal milk away, and actually starts to write again.
Through his translation work, Lars hits on this major revelation. He figures out that just because we can't change our past formations, our past mistakes, the people who've left us, the dumb things we said when we were angry, that doesn't mean we are off the hook from paying attention to them. Giving our lives honest, unflinching attention is the absolute core of the human experience. It's the very thing that separates a conscious, feeling human life from just a cold, meaningless sequence of events.
And that brings us perfectly to our final part. Section 4, the survey continues, ongoing measurements.
This is where all our stories converge. The author introduces this warning about something she calls the residual. Basically, it's a warning against meta-narrative friction. Simply put, do not get lazy just because you found a metaphor that sounds nice. We can never just sit back and rest on a single poetic epiphany to explain away our messy lives. The danger with a beautiful formulation is that it's beautiful, which makes you trust it, which makes you stop checking your instruments. But life is jagged, right? It demands constant revision, brand new data, and daily maintenance. The survey is never truly closed.
If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, please remember this. Our mental models of the world are only accurate enough until they aren't. The grand survey of the world outlasts every single one of us. Think about your own life for a second. Every relationship you have, your friends, your partners, it's really just an act of modeling another person from the outside based on the signals they give off. And because people change, you have to continually revise your models with new data. Treating life as this ongoing scientific survey isn't cold or clinical at all. It is actually the most honest, attentive, and loving way to navigate existence. To wrap things up, I want to leave you with this really provocative final thought, pulled right from Lars's translation project. What do we owe to the things we cannot change? Our past, our deep losses, our very own brain chemistry. We owe them our attention. We owe them an honest survey. So what measurements do you need to update today? Keep taking your data and never, ever stop surveying. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll catch you next time.